No artificial intelligence was involved in the creation of this episode of The Ron Van Dam Show. As a matter of fact, very little intelligence of any kind is typically involved in the creation of The Ron Van Dam Show. You're listening to Ron Van Dam on New England Broadcasting.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. It's the Ron Van Dam Show.
Okay, why not?
Hold on tight, things can get a bit weird, if you like that sort of thing.
Hey, you tuned into the show. I got nothing else to do, so here we go. Oh, you're looking good today. Oh, it's a special day. You put on some clothes. Wow, this is amazing. No, seriously, thanks for coming. I appreciate it, I really do. There'll be a little something in the mail for you. Should be a couple of invoices, but other than that, happy to correspond. No, this show is free to you. Not to sponsors, but to you it's free, so it's not that bad, really. Can't hurt that much. Okay, enough talking while the music's on in the background. That'll do it for today. Well, I have a very interesting show for you, and it's for everybody of every size, every dimension, every age, every appearance, everything. This is today about generations. Yeah, You're in one of them. You're being grouped. You're being profiled here. You are part of a certain generation. Now, I thought a generation was 100 years. I thought it was a century was a generation. But I was obviously, without question, incorrect. These generations only last like about 20 years. So I don't really understand why we have to start labeling age groups every 20 years. But in our society, that's what we do. We do that. We're all in an age group. Let's start from the very beginning, shall we? And then I have an expert coming up a little bit later in the show who's going to actually answer some generational questions like, well, why the hell do we do this? How are generations really different than other generations? Do they end up kind of the same anyway? It's really fascinating. I mean, it is. Hey, I just said it's really fascinating. Did you hear me? Okay. Let's start with what they call the greatest generation. Or they also call it the GI generation. I guess they had that little test done, by the doctor. That's the GI generation. The greatest generation, born 1901 to 1927. They are no longer with us. Pretty much across the board. Not entirely, but pretty much across the board. Dick Van Dyke, by the time I do this show, I don't know but Dick Van Dyke is like getting close to 100. Betty White, really, there. That was that generation, the greatest generation, I believe. And then from 1928 to 1945, that was called the silent generation. I don't think they talked, or they didn't really do much of anything. What an insult to be called the silent generation. What generation were you from? Shh. We were all born in libraries. Shh. They would ask questions of people they're born between 1928 and 1945, but they couldn't answer. Shh. We're the silent generation. Shut up. I kind of wish I was part of that, but I don't know what the silent generation really meant. I don't think it was because they didn't talk much. It was probably they didn't do much, so that's kind of the opposite of what I like. Then came the baby boomers, which was one of the largest generations ever. They were born from 1946 to 1964. That's a lot of people. And they had children from a different, we'll get into that. That was the baby boom. Men were coming back from the war, and the first thing they do when they walked in the door is have sex. I mean, let's face it, man. I mean, let's be honest about this. When you're away from women for years and undergoing the stresses and the amazing, horrible thing of World War II, when you get home, oh my God, dear, it's so good to see you. Can I get you dinner? No, just take your clothes off. I'm sorry, but that's what happened. And they made children like right away, within 10 minutes. They were delivered within 15 minutes. Then came Generation X, which I don't understand because X means canceled. Generation X, you were born from 1965 to 1980. A lot of people in that that was pretty heavy too. Then came the millennial generation, or what we call Generation Y. They get two titles. We call them millennials. Sounds like they came from another planet, doesn't it? The millennials have arrived. Oh my God, get your guns. The millennials are Generation Y, and it's not WHY. That was a Generation Y. No, it's the letter Y, and I don't know what that means at all. They were born from 1981 to 1996. There's a lot of them, too, walking the planet. Then Generation Z, or whatever. Generation Z, which seems like that should be the last generation. That should be it. Like we've run out of letters here, and this is the last generation. Then nothing. But no, there's more. Generation Z, you were born from 1997 to 2010. You would think that those would be the millennials, right? Because that incorporates the year 2000. But no, so it gets very confusing. That's Generation Z. Then comes Generation Alpha. I never heard of that. In my vast deference of knowledge, I have never heard of Generation Alpha. Now we're getting into Greek stuff. We are getting into Greek stuff. We've run out of everything else. Generation Alpha, you were born from 2010 to 2024. You are children. You are children. And then there's Generation Beta. That's, again, Greek alphabet. You were born 2025. You were just born. I don't even know why I'm talking to you. You're still in a crib, basically. You're being born from 2025 to 2039. That's the betas. It's the master betas. Generation Master Betas. So the baby boomers were the largest generation, born from 1946 to 1964. Their children are the millennials, and they are now the largest because of that, because of the kids that were a result of the baby boomers. So the baby boomers and the millennials are both existing on the planet at the same time. And they are the largest generations of people if we're going to categorize every 20 years of life, which seems like a lot. Because as far as I know, at my age, 20 years is like a snap of the fingers. It's not that long. It is, and in the scheme of things, it is really not that long at all. So, what's the difference then between the baby boomers and the millennials, the two largest populations of generations in a span of 20 years each? They're coexisting, the parents and the children. And what's the difference between them? Or really, is there a difference? When a generation is younger, that seems to be very, very different. But when any given generation gets older into their senior years, then are they not all the same? Have they not all morphed into the same grumpy assholes that they should have been to begin with? Have all the fantasies of life and living, have they all been crushed by rising interest rates, difficulty to live, aches and pains, daily arthritis for no reason whatsoever? Has every generation ended up with exactly the same attitude? Does every generation really at a point just cherish their simpler days no matter what generation you were in? I think they all become the same. But I think we are going through, see, if you're Republican, you think we're going through a wonderful, wonderful blossoming. If you are a Democrat or anything not a Republican, you think we have hit rock bottom of the crap wheel. Who gets us out of that? Well, it's the millennials. It's the millennials who now rule the planet. And there are millennials in Congress. I think we have a millennial vice president right now, if you're going to put that person into a category of being human. So, what are the differences? What are the similarities as these groups grow up? It's a fascinating conversation that we shall be having with our guest momentarily. He is a reporter for Bloomberg News, and he's decided to delve into this thing, and he actually wrote a book about it. We have a lot of people on this show who write books because they've delved into topics, and that's what happens when you write a book. Unless it's a children's story, then you're just fantasizing, and that's nice, but not as interesting. Let's say, if you're going to write a book about Tommy the Turtle, for example, I don't know if there is a book about a Tommy Turtle, but I assume there probably is, then perhaps you're speaking to a very small group of people who think that Tommy the Turtle is a significant situation. But if you write a book about something that's involving and thought-provoking, even a novel can be quite thought-provoking, sure, then that's worth discussing. Have I broken this down for you at all? All right, very quickly, I'm going to review the generations if you want to write this down. If you don't, then this is going to be a very boring 30 seconds. Here we go. The greatest generation, born 1901 to 1927. The silent generation, born 1928 to 1945. The baby boom generation, I think I have one of these badges, born 1946 to 1964. Generation X, don't touch them, 1965 to 1980. Millennials, yeah, baby, 1981 to 1996. Generation Z, 97 to 2010. They kind of jumped that hurdle there. Generation Z, 1997 to 2010. Generation Alpha, born 2010 to 2024. Generation Beta, who don't even know what I'm talking about because they're in a crib right now, 2025 to 2039. Okay. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, my guest will be joining us, and we will break this on down and find out what happens to these people in their lifespans, these different generations. Do we get along? Are we at odds together? I do not know. So, first, there's this.
I wanted to learn more about who I am and where I come from. You know, my family history.
I've always been curious about my genetic background. What makes me, me?
I needed to know myself better, and now I do, thanks to Who Is I?
Who Is I is the genetic ancestry testing kit you can use right in your own home. Using state-of-the-art technology from 30 years ago, Who Is I's patent-pending genetic testing protocols have been proven to be 96% accurate in up to 14% of tests, with a highly acceptable 7 to 10% margin of error. In today's market, there is no other ancestry test this accurate that's also called Who Is I.
My Who Is I test told me that I'm 79% Italian, 12% Tasmanian, and 6% Oldsmobile. It was so easy.
Who Is I says I'm 18% New Jerseyan, 42% French toast, and 16% unidentifiable goo. That's so good to know.
With one simple nasal swab test, plus a fingernail, elbow skin, half ounce of toe sweat, quarter pint of blood or mucus, and 3 drops of fluid from your left eye, Who Is I maps your genetic markers as accurately as a slightly out-of-date road atlas.
I had suspected for a long time that I'm descended from the lizard people of planet Zargon. Now, thanks to Who Is I know I'm actually from Flugamir 7 in the Andromeda system. Plus, I'm 3% Arapaho and 6% slightly used paper products.
Your Who Is I results will tell you not just about yourself, but your whole family tree as well, with just one simple test.
I always wondered about my ancestors. Now I know that my great-great-grandfather was a bicycle tire. Thanks, Who Is I?
Who Is I Home Genetic Ancestry Testing. It's time to get to know yourself better.
Charlie Wells joins us now. He's, this is What Happened to Millennials in Defense of a Generation. This is a book that's come out and is very topical. Thanks for being with us, Charlie.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
Charlie, what makes you an expert in this field?
Well, I am one to start. So
Okay.
I have lived. Yeah, exactly. I am one. But I've lived like the 72 million other millennials in the United States through a really extraordinary period of change in the country.
Yeah.
And I'm also a reporter. I write about millennial life. I've been doing it for my entire career.
Yeah.
And I was picking up on some changes. So I wanted to kind of document those in this book.
Very interesting. I'm of the baby boom generation, and we made you. And, and basically, it's the same kind of population in this generation, which it's huge. It's like almost record breaking.
Well, yeah. It's funny, though, because like in a lot of ways, we're this kind of funny mirror of you guys, right? And they literally used to call us the echo boom, where we were kind of like the echo of you guys. And what's interesting, and what I explore in this book, is there have actually been a lot of different names for millennials. So kind of unlike some of the other generations, they called us the echo boom. At one point, people wanted to call us the Tamagotchi generation because we loved playing with those. I know that's bad. We were also Gen Y, right? That's kind of similar to Gen X, but over time, this name millennials stuck, and I'm kind of interested in the reasons for that.
Interesting. Well, I guess it was a timing. It coincides with the actual year.
There's the timing, and there's the fact that a lot of us kind of see a very much kind of a before and after around that year 2000, right? Like that was kind of when the internet was developing. We remember the era when you literally had to use a landline, when you had to go learn the Dewey Decimal System, when you were at the library, when you had to send snail mail to people. So a lot of millennials kind of remember this sort of before, after, and see themselves as a bridge generation. So a bridge to this kind of new digital era we find ourselves in right now.
Very, very interesting. You're right. It is kind of in the center of that whole thing. And I meet a lot of millennials, obviously, and a lot of them claim that they're old souls. And that phrase is used a lot, where they seem to be in the midst of the new technology, yet have a love somewhere in their heart for being more mature than that. It's an interesting response.
Well, what that gets at, too, is this idea of nostalgia. And sometimes people accuse millennials of being overly nostalgic. There were a lot of articles written when we were kind of entering the labor force of how we were too nostalgic, that we were just kind of focusing on the past, and that we were kind of trapped in kind of the 90s, right? And there's a sort of narrative, whether it's true or not, that the 90s were kind of a more peaceful time, more of a golden age for the United States, et cetera. And what my research actually found, though, is that people tend to go through nostalgic phases at lots of different points in their life. But one of them is when they're entering the workforce. And it's this whole new thing. They're figuring out how life works. They're figuring out how, to manage the job, the boss, the money, etc. And they just kind of look back positively on previous moments of their lives. And that was something that was happening to millennials, and it was happening at a time when social media was taking off. So there was a lot of attention focused on that phase of our lives.
Huh. I'll tell you something that confounds me, and maybe you can help me figure out what happened here. I grew up at a time where long hair, bandanas, rebellion, want to change the world, but the big thing was peace and love. That was the whole thing. And then that generation, the baby boomers, grew up and became the hard, fast kind of assholes. And I don't.
You said it.
Yeah. And I don't understand how you can go from one attitude and then totally shift to a harder one that seemed to actually rebuff what that very generation was doing. They became what they were trying to rebel against.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't understand that.
Well, that's a really good question. And actually, it's one that a lot of researchers are kind of probing more, and they want more people to understand. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're saying gets at this misunderstanding that people might have when they kind of treat when you're born like literally like an astrological sign, right? There's a lot of articles out there that are like, oh, you're a boomer because this, like, here's all these signs that you're a millennial, et cetera, et cetera. And where the research is going now is, yes, like when you're born matters to some degree. That's kind of what sociologists call your cohort, right? Like your peers. But there's other things that matter and that kind of change who you are, how you think, how you move from having super long hair to having like short hair, wearing a suit, and being in an office all day. And that's like life stage, right? Like as you move through life, you go through these different kind of like passages. And then the other thing, the third thing that they want you to think about is just history, right? Like there's certain events that affect everyone on the planet at the same time. So like looking at all those three things, the years you're born, right, the decades you're born in, then the stage of life that you're at, and then just history. And I think when you look at all those three things, that's how you get that picture. And that's how you answer your question, which is a really good one.
It is indeed that the millennials, quote unquote, are in command and should be in command. I say the same thing about women. There are more women in this country, maybe on the planet, but in this country than there are men, by quite a bit, actually. And yet, women are not where they're supposed to be on the ladder, but yet they are the majority. And I don't know why they didn't overthrow or why we don't have a woman in the White House. All that kind of stuff doesn't quite make sense to me. But I guess the good news is if millennials really use their brains, they can change the world really now.
Well, that's the hope, right? And I think one of the things I'm trying to do in this book is to kind of change the story that people think they know about millennials, right? So for a long time, there was this narrative that we were slackers and that we were behind, we weren't buying homes, we were kind of wasting our money on things like brunches, avocado toast, on Ubers, etc. But one of the reasons why our generation had a difficult time is a lot of us were entering the labor market in the wake of the recession, right? It was so hard to get a job. 1 out of 5 young people who wanted to get a job couldn't get a job. So there's been a lot of difficulties there. But what I try to say in this book is basically we went through that. Now we are actually in a much better place economically. By some measures, millennials are actually about 30% richer at this stage in their life than boomers were at that stage in their life, right? So that's on average. So by some measures, we're doing well. And I think we need to kind of change the story. And then when you change the story, attitudes change and actions start to change. So that's what I'm hoping people will take from this.
Yeah. I mean, the whole game is stimulating the present generation that really has the power, which are millennials right now. That age group 29 to 44 is everything. I know that there's a large number of baby boomers, but I mean, these are the millennials who can actually do this, and they just have to get activated. And are millennials a political force, or are they a sit back and watch force?
Yeah, well, look, I think that there's a lot of stories told about us, and I think one of the concerns was that we would just be on the internet all the time, right? That we were, I think the term is slacktivists, just kind of sitting there liking stuff, making posts or whatever. But we are seeing millennials start to certainly enter the political fray, right? We are on whatever side of the aisle you are. There's a millennial vice president right now, right? And if you go down from there, there are a lot of millennials in both parties who are serving in office. There's millennials who are entering the C-suite, boardrooms, etc. And one of the takes that at least I interviewed in this book 5 different millennials from different parts of the country. And one of the takes I got is that they are good at adapting to change, right? A lot of change has happened in the past 25 years, right? We had Y2K, we had the war on terror, we had the recession, we had the real estate, meltdown, we had the pandemic. And as this cohort of people has been kind of forging in adulthood, they've had to respond to these huge changes. And so what that left me with was a sense of optimism, right? That these people, they're still standing, they are forming families, they are buying homes. The majority of millennials now own homes. That was a huge criticism of us a decade ago. But we were coming out of a real estate crisis, right? So we are building the things that people thought we wouldn't, that people kind of critiqued us for not doing. And that's why I call this book What Happened to Millennials in Defense of a Generation, because when you look back at the stuff that we've actually done, it's impressive, right? It's the stuff that a lot of critics thought that we wouldn't do. And so I think if we can kind of harness that energy and say, look, we can do hard stuff, right? And people might criticize us. They might say things. They might, say, they might see the world in a really negative space, but we've been building. And I think we can continue to do that.
Yeah. I don't think it's millennials that are stuck to the screen and all that kind of stuff in their phones. I think it's every generation stuck to that. I don't know what the generation is called after the millennials. I don't know what that's called anymore. But those
Gen Z.
Okay, those are the ones I'm concerned about. Those are the ones with the face stuck. But that could be just youth, or it could be like a whole change in. It's like technology doesn't really do things better; it just makes things easier. That's
the point. That's the point I try to make in the book, right? That, like, we used to see technology as this total force for good, but actually it's kind of just neutral, right? It depends on how you use it.
Right.
So you can use it for good, you can also use it for bad. And on Gen Z, I think one of the things that millennials have said to me, and millennials are starting to have families, they're starting to have children, they're teachers in school. And one of the best things that someone said in this book was, look, I see tech problems with this younger generation. I remember what it was like when we didn't have iPhones. I remember my entire childhood without one, and it was great. So I want to help these younger people feel what it's like to disconnect a little bit.
Very good. Yeah. It's almost like there comes a point in your life right in the middle of the millennial generation. There comes a point where you actually say out loud, oh my God, now I understand what my parents were talking about.
That's what this book is about. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, like, do you remember the movie The Big Chill? Like, I feel like for boomers, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that seemed like a moment for baby boomers where it was like, look, we are grown-ups now.
Right.
We're looking back, like, we are the adults in the room, and you know what? This is kind of cool. Like, I actually kind of like it. I like what we've done, and we're different than we thought we would be. I remember back in that movie, like, they're different than they thought they were back in college, but they're adults and they're kind of embracing the full thing. And I think that's a place where we are as millennials, which is kind of a fun place to be.
Charlie, this is a great book. Congratulations to you. It's about time someone put it all together, and so that we can all kind of like agree or at least find out where we are. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's available everywhere. I assume it's everywhere, right?
Yeah, you can get it Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the book places.
All the book places. Amazon's really all the book places in the world.
Too real.
Is there some place where people can follow you?
Yeah, I'm an old-fashioned person. You can email me, but I have a website. It's charlie-wells.com. So it's probably the best place to start.
Perfect. The book is What Happened to Millennials in Defense of a Generation. Pick this up. This is obviously I could talk for hours about this, so it makes it good reading. There you go. Hey, Charlie, pleasure. Well, that'll do it for me today. I'll be back again the next time a weekday rolls around, which could be rather soon. But until that time arrives, I wish you peace.